Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Beans No Ball. Super Bowl Sunday is just a couple days away now. Obviously, our yearly tradition, our Super Bowl preview. Now, Christian, it's our third year covering the Super Bowl. We get a repeat of our first Super Bowl that we covered 2 years ago, the Eagles and the Chiefs. Now, no, this is what a lot of people wanted, but hey, for damn sure, this is gonna be a great game. So, I mean, hey, let's just get into it. Let's talk about, how they got here, just throughout, both of these, our AFC and NFC champions.
Yeah, so obviously starting off with the NFC side with the Eagles. Obviously, we know one of the big reasons they're really here, and it's because of Saquon Barkley. Obviously, probably one of the biggest obviously accusations for any team in the league. I mean, absolutely what total 2005 rushing yards on the ground. Obviously, had one of his best seasons ever since he probably his best season. Not even in New York, he's not even capitalized anything like that at all on the ground, even in the receiving end there, and a really huge impact on the receiving end there. I'm just gonna be receiving the rushing end there too, but when we're outside of Saquon Barkley, that whole offense in general and the whole team in general, we mentioned before this whole season that the Eagles, they're a very complete team. They have a lot of star talent on both sides of the ball there too. Special teams, the kicker with Jake Elliott, that's one thing I said there too. But when we're looking at this offense and this defense, they got guys, they got dogs all around this whole team there too. And looking into this season there too, looking in the playoffs, sure, you can say it was pretty much a cakewalk for them too. Pretty much
Hey man, my Rams were no cakewalk, let's be honest.
Pretty much stonewall the Green Bay Packers in the wild card. Then obviously moving on to division with the Rams there too. We saw how that ended up playing out. And then obviously again too in the championship game against the Commanders, we expected a close game, but it really wasn't there too. So the Eagles, they're just absolutely really good at really just blowing out their opponents there. But now coming into the Super Bowl rematch with the Kansas City Chiefs there too. Hopefully they're gonna get this. They're looking to see if they get the revenge from Super Bowl 57 there too. But when we're looking at the Chiefs side, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, say what you want about, that wild card in that NFC championship. That divisional round, really showed a lot of the fight that this Eagles team had to pull out a gritty game in the snow. We obviously saw Saquon reaching out to LaShawn McCoy after his big snow game back in 2013. So yeah, overall, that game showed me a lot about this Eagles team. But like you're saying, this Chiefs team, it's another story we obviously see. Sure, say what you want. They get some help. They get those calls. I mean, say what you want. But in all reality, I mean, the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. We know the different animal that this team becomes in the playoffs. And sure, I guess, Mahomes, I guess he hasn't really been that playoff performer throughout, as we've seen. But, I mean, regardless of what it was, I mean, they took care of business against Houston. And obviously that game against the Bills, I mean, one of the better games that we've gotten to see, from this. I mean, sure, it's hard to compare against that 13-second game that they had in the division round a couple years ago, but just overall getting business taken care of. There were obviously those calls once again that you could say what you want, but I mean, regardless, I mean, those little ticky-tack things that you can pick apart. I mean, the Chiefs are still a great team, and just nothing that you got to say. I mean, it's really, I mean, interesting to see the media leaning into this. I know Travis Kelce even kind of had his own question to say. I mean, it's cool for us fans or even the lower level type of guys to making jokes about it, but the upper media, it's kind of interesting for that. But I mean, regardless, the season they had to start out 9-0 and have that loss against the Bills, and to get the revenge on that one real loss that they had coming into the Super Bowl strong. And it's gonna be very interesting to see how they come into it, getting into our positional comparisons now.
Yeah, so when we're looking at the quarterbacks of both these teams there too, honestly, in my opinion, I'm going to say the quarterbacks, I'm going to say it's equal. And this is why I think it's equal. You have Mahomes there too. I understand. This is Mahomes in the playoffs, Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He is a very, very different breed. But comparing him to Jalen Hurts and how they've been all season, all throughout the playoffs, I'm going to say it's pretty equal just because, sure.
It's interesting to see you give Jalen his flowers.
Yeah, look, I know how much I've seen about Jalen there too, but at the end of the day, he may not have a great showing in the passing attack, but on the ground using his legs, that's really where he does show his true colors there. So on the ground game, him alongside with Saquon Barkley, that's really what I showed there too. But again, this is the Super Bowl. You are going against the Kansas City Chiefs defense, who have been one of the best in the league as well there too, along with the Philly defense. This is gonna be another game where I've been saying about Jalen Hurts. He's going to have to be better on the pass attack. He proved it wrong to me against the Commanders, finally, once again there too. But this Chiefs defense, it's different. So this is really where he's got to be on his heels once again there too. But for quarterbacks, I'm going to say both of these are equal when it comes to both the positions.
Yeah, overall, you look at it, I mean, they're not at their best going into this game, but when we look at it, at least from the playoffs, I'm gonna give the edge to Mahomes. I mean, and a lot of this is gonna come down to this, that experience. Now, sure, in Super Bowl 57, Jalen Hurts played out of his mind, and he definitely deserved to win the Super Bowl in that game. But obviously, some soft defense from the Eagles, fell apart from there. But just regardless, the way we've seen Jalen Hurts play, it's not really giving me enough to say that he's gonna do enough to pull this game off for the Eagles. Now, obviously, they have a lot of other pieces that really give the Eagles a shot, but just specifically Jalen Hurts in this playoff run, I haven't seen enough. Patrick Mahomes, sure, we're not seeing the same Mahomes as of late, but he still has shown his flashes, specifically that AFC Championship. He showed, obviously that connection with Travis Kelce, which is something that also we'll get into in just a bit. But as for quarterbacks, I mean, it's a no-brainer in my opinion. I still have to give Mahomes the upper edge. Now, running backs, this is the one that the Eagles, I guess both of us can easily say, the Eagles get that upper edge. I mean, obviously Saquon Barkley, and you can go interchangeably Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, but Kareem Hunt really has maintained himself as that running back one position.
He did get the one spot. Pacheco
he is gonna go into the Super Bowl with that spot. Obviously, a great comeback story for him ever since that time that he left the Chiefs and going to the Browns. Obviously, making his way back to the team and playing at a high caliber and really doing what he can to make up for, I guess, not the best rushing attack for the Chiefs, but he's made do. Obviously was a big piece for me in fantasy throughout the season. But yeah, the story about this, it's Saquon Barkley, the playoff run he's at. I mean, can't say enough about what he did in the regular season, but this generational playoff run, of course, I mean, obviously running all over, I guess a little more quiet than you probably would expect against the Packers, but that Rams game, it's the reason they're in the Super Bowl, in my opinion. The way Saquon just ran loose, specifically those two 60-yard touchdowns, really are what solidified it. And I mean, just can't say enough about him. If the Eagles win this game, it's going to take another big game for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and honestly, that's another one. I agree with you. The running back, I think this is a no-brainer with Saquon. Just what we've been mentioning all season and how much of a key factor he is within that whole offense there too. But now when we move on to the receivers, I think this is where Philly also gets the edge on this one too. We got AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. Those are the two big guys on that offense. There, sure, there could be a couple games where they switch off. One doesn't really do as well as the other. AJ Brown, I believe he had 10 yards in the Packer game there too. So Devonta did have to pick up more of the load there. And interchanges between the two there too. But when we're looking at compared to the Chiefs receiving core, D-Hop's still there, and then obviously Xavier Worthy, who really had a big showing against the Buffalo Bills there too. But when you got guys like AJ Brown, another big guy, and then Devonta Smith, the speedy guy, was alongside him with it too. With Jalen Hurts, gets active in the pass game, it's gonna be a no-brainer for these Eagles receivers to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. Talent-wise, Eagles got this one pretty easily. Obviously, both of our opinion, but the uses that they get used. I mean, Xavier Worthy, obviously he had some quiet games down their stretch, but the Chiefs just find perfect ways to use him. And with DeAndre Hopkins, he's been a sleeping giant. Don't be surprised. I mean, this is one guy that I definitely expect could get into the end zone. And don't forget about Juju Smith-Schuster. Obviously, he had a phenomenal game against the Eagles 2 years ago. Would not be surprised if he's another sneaky guy that gets used in little by little. And now tight ends. Now, obviously, you got a future Hall of Famer and a guy that's definitely been on the rise in Dallas Goedert. Now, I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, look, I love Dallas Goedert. He obviously had a phenomenal playoff run, but playoff Travis Kelce is just something else. I mean, it's just the connection he has with Mahomes. Obviously, I was alluding to it just a bit earlier. He has the record for playoff touchdowns at the position. So, I mean, I would not be surprised. Obviously, he got a touchdown in the last Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl. Would not be surprised if he gets into the end zone once again. And sure, we remember last year in the Super Bowl, obviously the bump with Andy Reid, obviously all the shenanigans we saw them getting into. If they get him quiet early, there could be some animosity to get into, but I really expect Travis Kelce to have a vintage playoff game going into this one.
Yeah, there's just another example of we see Mahomes in the playoffs, not to count him out. Travis Kelce's another threat in the pass game that he really just can't count out there. Sure, we saw earlier in the season he really wasn't looking like his true self. The age starting to hit him just a bit there too, but along down the stretch, finally starting to show his true Travis Kelce self. And then the Super Bowl here too, we see that connection with him and Mahomes. It's deadly outside of that receiving core there too. So I'm really going to expect a lot of targets coming for Travis Kelce's way. And now moving it on with the defense. Now, like we've been talking about, both these defenses have been really, really well. Deuce Spagnuolo on the Chiefs and then Vic Fangio on the Eagles. The Eagles, they got a nice, really young defense there too. It's really really, really close, but I'm gonna have to give this with I'm gonna have to give Spags defense a little upper edge there too. I mean, when you got Chris Jones and Carl Loftus on that, on the front seven being the true leaders there, and then you got the young guys like Trent McDuffie and then Watson, who they just activated not that long ago. It's really hard to really count the Chiefs defense out there too. And when Spags blitzes, when Spags ends up blitzing, it's pretty much game over for the offense there. And we see with Jalen Hurts, your Rams, the Jared Verse and the whole front seven, they were getting to Jalen Hurts, but obviously story of that was the offense couldn't get going there. I'm going to expect a lot of blitzes from Spags defense coming into this game to hopefully to shut down Jalen Hurts, specifically in the run game as well.
Yeah, I see the defense is pretty evenly matched in my opinion. The only real upper edge that I would give the Chiefs in this one is just the playoff experience. Now, so you got a lot of young guys, but with back-to-back Super Bowls, obviously they got a lot of playoff experience early, guys like Karlaftis, Nick Bolton, all that. I mean, just the experience that they get, I definitely have to give it to them. But you also see, despite the inexperience, I mean, this early playoff run that the Eagles have had, I mean, guys like Zach Bond, who by the time you're watching this may have won Defensive Player of the Year. We'll see what ends up happening tonight on NFL Honors. But, I mean, Zach Bond is obviously a breakout season for him. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, phenomenal rookies at the cornerback position that, obviously all the questions that we had for the Eagles in the secondary definitely have been answered with them. And obviously the monster in Jalen Carter just absolutely disrupting the run game, disrupting the pass game. Anything you want, you get it from him. You get both sides. I mean, specifically this Fangio defense to go up against Mahomes is something that obviously everyone's excited to see. But the main thing too, with Spagnuolo's defense, only once in the playoffs in his history, or in the Super Bowl history, he has allowed a 100-yard rusher. It's going to be a phenomenal chess match that we're going to see between the Eagles' run game and Spagnuolo's run deep. But obviously, run it back to the offensive side of the ball. We'll just get into, I think it's kind of easy for us to say who gets the upper end on this one. But offensive line, the Eagles, man. I mean, you see the guys that they have. I mean, obviously, even without Jason Kelsey, the first year without him, did not miss a step. Obviously, Cam Jurgens, a great backup throughout that time while Kelsey was at the tail end of his career, really picking up, which, he does have some injuries going into this, but it looks like he'll be fine. And Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, I mean, can't say enough about them, all pro guys. And obviously, they are a big reason why Saquon had such a good year. And sure, the Chiefs' offensive line has held up for the most part, but we'll see how much they can hold up against this generational Eagles D.
Yeah, without a doubt, the Eagles' offensive line does get this. I know a lot of questions drilled in the offseason as well from the offensive line, how much of a struggle they're going to be. But obviously, like you mentioned right now, with Saquon being, such a factor in that offense, that O-line is definitely one of the underrated pieces on that offensive part of there too. So honestly, I would say it's pretty close, between the Chiefs there too. But with just the weapons that the Philly offensive line has, you really just can't count them out there too. And with closing out with the special teams here, I'm gonna go with the Chiefs, and this is mainly just because with just the kickers, with Bucker, he's got the upper edge on this. We know with Jake Elliott, he's had his struggles firm deep there too. That's why I'm giving the slight edge to the Chiefs for special teams, and it's just with Bucker and that whole special team in general really lights out there too. Jake Elliott, that's kind of my only concern there about the Eagles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't even say just that. I mean, on the return game, Nico Remigio has been phenomenal, not only just overall in the season, specifically in the playoffs, really coming out and just, he flips the field. And obviously, we remember, again, a lot of parallels from 2 years ago. Remember Kadarius Toney punt return that really set up the Chiefs to end up winning this game. Do not be surprised if Remigio brings one back. Could it be a Devin Hester type and brings it back all the way, or just to set up some great field position for Mahomes? I think the return game is going to be really important. Specifically, obviously, it's our first Super Bowl with the new kickoff rules. A lot of stuff to look into, specifically special teams, but obviously the Jake Elliott struggles are the main thing that we really got to look at. He missed a couple extra points against the Rams, and just overall throughout the season, definitely could come to hurt them here. But that pretty much wraps it up. I didn't keep track, but looks pretty even. Obviously, I'll just throw up a graphic, see what we have, who really has the upper edge on these comparisons. But let's get into our predictions, man. Obviously, let's see how close we can get. It hasn't been that good as of late, at least what we've been doing the channel. But Christian, what you got going for this game?
Yeah, so obviously, I'm gonna have to go with the Chiefs on this one, and I think that was pretty much the the most obvious pick for me there too. I mean, I can't count out the Chiefs on this one there too. And even as a Cowboys fan, they are responsible why the Eagles don't have a Super Bowl and the Niners don't have a Super Bowl as well. So keeping it to the rivalry standpoint, I got to think the Chiefs on that one. Can't count them out there too. And I'm gonna, wouldn't be surprised. I'm gonna keep it a little closer. I'm gonna count this a 28-21 Chiefs game.
MVP, man, you got to go to your MVP.
It's gonna be Patrick Mahomes. I think this is the most obvious one here too. It's gonna be Patrick.
Yeah, because 2 years ago you gave us Kelsey, you gave us a bit of an outlier, but hey, keep it consistent on this one. Obviously, I'm gonna agree with you. I mean, I don't want to say obviously because the Eagles are definitely a formidable opponent here. They proved why they came out of the NFC, but I mean, the Chiefs in the playoffs, call it the dark arts, call it all that. They're getting the three-peat in my opinion. I just don't think the Fangio is going to be able to contain them, and I think Spagnuolo is going to be a big reason that the Chiefs defense can really contain. I don't expect them to hold Barkley under 100, but I think they're going to hold him overall pretty well. Now, I'm expecting a 31-27 game. Once again, we're kind of in agreement. These games are going to be pretty high scoring. I'm going to have Mahomes at the MVP also. So, I mean, I guess we're pretty much in agreement. Back-to-back years. Last time I did take the Eagles. This time, I can't count out Mahomes. I mean, it's been a while since I decided to count him out. It's not going to change here. But I think that pretty much does it for us here. We'll see if we get it right. We'll see if we watch History Sunday and see if the Chiefs can pull off the three-peat. But thank you guys for watching. Hope you like and subscribe. And before we get to the Super Bowl, be sure you tune back to see our reactions to the NFL honors.